If you're trying to conceive and feeling overwhelmed with fertility advice, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Don't Tell Me to Relax, your fertility podcast and antidote to unhelpful fertility information. I'm Hannah, a fertility acupuncturist, teacher and campaigner for better fertility education. This podcast aims to empower and inform you about your menstrual cycle and fertility. It's basically all that information you didn't get in sex ed at school, with the aim of improving your understanding of your reproductive health and optimizing your fertility. Hello everybody and welcome to this week's episode of Don't Tell Me to Relax. It's very exciting this week because for the first time ever on the podcast, we are doing a three-way. So I've got myself, I've got Katie and I've got Dr Fran from the Lowdown here. And we are recording a special episode all about coming off contraception and trying to conceive after you've come off contraception and kind of like issues that can arise around that. So before we get stuck into that very meaty topic, Dr. Fran, would you like to introduce yourself and say a little bit about your background, your work, and tell us a little bit about the Lowdown?
Of course. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Hannah and Katie. I'm Dr. Frances Yarlett, or just Dr. Fran. I'm an NHS GP practicing in Sheffield and also medical director at the Lowdown. The Lowdown is the fun part of my job. We are the UK's leading women's health research platform. We initially started in contraception about 5 years ago before we've recently started moving into other women's health areas. And our entire aim is to fill the appalling data gap in women's health research by letting women share their own experiences, which is often very cathartic and helpful to do, about their experiences with a variety of things, starting with contraceptive side effects, moving on to polycystic ovary syndrome, endometriosis, and trying to conceive. So to date, we've collected over 6,500 women's experiences around those issues, with over 1 million data points, which is a huge amount of information, and that allows other people to come to us at the Lowdown website, educate themselves and empower yourselves by searching through other women's and people's reviews and experiences to find someone just like you, see what they've been through, and also to validate your own experience as well. Not only that, we've got some really exciting tech tools on the website, starting with the contraceptive recommender. I know we're talking about coming off contraception, but if you're ever thinking about starting contraception, we've got a really fantastic tool which recommends contraceptives based on your medical history that are safe and suitable for you. We have comparison tools to look at the different methods, and exciting, our new fertility tool, which we've recently launched, helping women who are fertility curious and their partners, all the way through to, if you've been trying for a while, looking at ways that you can optimize your fertility by inputting all your information and us telling you helpful things that you can do. So that's me. And my final job is that I'm a mum of two little girls, a 2.5-year-old and a 6-month-old, which is by far my hardest job.
Oh gosh, well, it's amazing all the stuff that you're doing, and doing that with two little kids as well. I mean, hats off to you. It's a lot. It's amazing what the Lowdown is doing, and a lot of what we do in clinic as well is like hearing of kind of people's experiences and things. So like we understand the value of like that validation that can give people. So obviously like the Lowdown started with all the contraception stuff and like collecting so much like brilliant data on that. Like why is the Lowdown like made this move into like fertility and conception?
It seemed very natural to us. It's sort of the next step from everyone who we were talking to initially. So contraception, obviously primarily it's used to prevent pregnancy, alongside being used to treat women's health conditions as well. So many of our users have been on contraception for a long time, and then suddenly they get to the next stage of their lives where it might be to then, I've prevented pregnancy for so many years, now I'm desperate to be pregnant. So we started having a lot of questions about how to come off contraception, how contraception can affect your fertility, not only in our DMs on Instagram, but also in the telemedicine consultations that myself and the other doctors do. And because at the Lowdown, we were very responsive, we try and make that one of our key sort of pillars of our ethos. We listen to every piece of feedback we get and really try to deliver on what our users want. So we decided that was the next place we were going to go, fertility. We did a huge survey of all our users, and we found that 39% of people who were trying to conceive hadn't told anyone that they were trying to conceive. So we've recognised that it can be quite a lonely experience, no matter what you're going through. And we also know that a fifth of our users have actually been trying for over a year. So we wanted to build this area for women to go, write down all your feelings, get it all out, and learn from other women about their experiences to see what's worked for them and how they can get through this period of trying to conceive.
So, Dr. Fran, today we're going to be looking at coming off contraception and the sort of issues around that. And I know myself and Katie see a lot of people in clinic who come to us because they've come off contraception and their cycles haven't returned, or they've returned in a funny way. So what kind of are your recommendations to people who might be thinking about coming off contraception? What kind of things can you sort of advise to people who are, maybe they're on contraception, but they're thinking of coming off it and they want to conceive? What do you say to them?
So first things first, planning and preparation when you're trying to conceive. Simple things. So folic acid, so important when you're thinking about trying to conceive. And I always recommend the guidance is start it 3 months before you're trying to conceive. And a lot of people forget that because they think, well, if I come off contraception, it's going to take more than 3 months anyway, but not necessarily. So start your preconception vitamins early. Folic acid, and make sure you know what the right dose is for you. So I don't know if you have this in clinic where a lot of women are taking the over-the-counter dose, but actually their medical history or other factors mean that they should be on a higher dose, which is only prescribed by your GP. So look into that. Make sure you're taking it at the right dose alongside your vitamin D.
Can I just ask there what kind of what factors would mean that, what are the kind of indicators that you might need a higher dose?
So the standard dose, 400 micrograms, you can buy that over the counter at the pharmacy for about £1 for 3 months. You don't need any fancy ones. However, if you have a BMI over 30, if you have diabetes, if you have a family history of spina bifida, which is a problem in the spinal cord in development of the embryo or the fetus, and finally, if you suffer from epilepsy or if you are on anti-epileptic medications, that means you need the higher dose of folic acid, which is 5 milligrams a day, and you should be getting that prescribed by your GP. So if you're unsure, if you're concerned, just give your GP a ring before you start trying. We are trained to do preconception counselling, and we don't do enough of it, if I'm being honest. For multiple reasons, we're too stretched. People don't know that we're there for it, but we are here to have a chat with. So that's the folic acid. And then a lot of what I recommend will be things that you say all the time as well in clinic, Hannah and Katie. It's lifestyle changes. It's getting yourself in the best possible place for your cycles to return to a healthy menstrual cycle when you come off contraception. So we're looking at stopping smoking, cutting down alcohol, maintaining a healthy amount of exercise, not too much, not too little. Dietary changes, and making sure you're aware of the dietary changes that are necessary when you're trying to conceive or get pregnant. And inform yourself with all that. Get all the information ready, know what you're doing, a good 3 months before you come off contraception, and then just come off it. And there's not actually anything special with coming off it. You just have to come off the contraception, stop using it. And it can happen very, very quickly. For example, Dr. Becky at the Lowdown, she had her Mirena coil removed. She didn't even have a period and she was pregnant within 2 weeks. Which is why you have to be so prepared with your preconception care.
100%. It's so nice to hear that being like echoed back from yourself of like the preparation part. Like we're going on about that all the bloody time. So it's really nice to hear that. I mean, what are the kind of common problems that you see with people when they are coming off contraception? Obviously the coming off bit is quite straightforward, as you say, but the kind of impacts that it can have, like what things are you seeing?
Well, firstly, we say it's really easy to come off contraception, but I suppose that's only if it's a method that you're controlling. So it's really easy to stop a pill.
Yeah.
It's really easy to not go for your next injection. But practically and logistically, if you have an implant, if you have a coil, you might be waiting quite a long time on a list to have those removed in some parts of the country, which is frustrating. So think about booking in early or switching to another form of contraceptive for a while until you're ready. So going from something long acting like the implant or the coil onto something more short active, or even condoms, until you're actually ready to trying to conceive and you've done that 3 months of preparation. Or for women who are really, really struggling to get those things removed, I always say, look at private options. You know, if you're really struggling that much, if you can go to a private option, then why not? But whatever you do, please don't try to take a coil out at home.
I know.
No.
I've got a story about a mate and a coil in lockdown, and
go on.
I'm not. Well, she took it out herself in lockdown.
Oh,
Yeah, and I mean,
No.
obviously we would not recommend that, but she did, and she was totally fine. But you know, I think there can be a huge wait, can't there, to get
yeah.
contraception removed, and people feel really frustrated, and it's really difficult, isn't it? How much roughly does it cost if you have to pay and go and get it done privately?
Oh, I'm not sure, to be honest, and I should know because one of my favourite all-time sexual health doctors who I fangirl all the time does it, but I still don't know. But it's not going to be as expensive as having a coil fitted, and actually the procedure itself is so easy for a healthcare professional to do. It shouldn't be a huge expense. But despite me saying it's easy for a healthcare professional to do, that's a healthcare professional, because we can see what we're doing and we're trained in it. If you try and take your own coil out and it goes terribly wrong, there's a risk you're going to damage your cervix, the neck of the womb, which is going to cause problems in pregnancy. So
makes my legs go all funny.
Yeah, me too.
Surprised.
It's not something I like to think
Oh no.
So yeah, I mean, that's one common problem, actually being able to stop the contraceptive. Secondly, we hear a lot of women then starting to suffer with the symptoms that their hormonal contraceptives were treating. For example, PMS symptoms, menstrual migraines, painful periods. And unfortunately, they might then continue until you get pregnant and the menstrual cycle stops again. But being aware that might happen and understanding ways you can manage those symptoms is really important to deal with them. And then finally, coming off hormonal contraception, the biggest thing we hear all the time is that stopping the hormones then can reveal the reproductive problems which had been treated by the hormones. Significant conditions for fertility being PCOS and endometriosis, which, as you know, affect 1 in 10 women. So they're common. And I think a lot of women talk about how they didn't know about those conditions until they stopped the contraceptives and wanted to get pregnant. I don't know if you hear this a lot, Hannah and Katie, but the term the contraceptive was masking my PCOS or masking my endometriosis.
I see that a lot.
And I prefer to use the phrase it was treating your symptoms rather than masking. And it's sometimes very difficult for women to come to terms with that, and frustrating that they did not know about this beforehand. Although it's very difficult because women start hormonal contraceptives at such a young age sometimes.
So young,
they not developed any of these symptoms. So that is one of the commonest problems coming off the hormonal contraceptive, is not stopping the contraceptive itself. It's the recurrence of your menstrual cycle and the symptoms that can come along with that, or the reproductive problems that are then shown after you've stopped the contraceptive.
And I guess one thing that we talk about a lot is this idea that, you know, if you had problems before you went on your contraception, to think about coming off maybe a year before you're ready to conceive in an ideal world, because you don't know, do you? Until you stop that contraception, you don't know what your cycle's going to return like. And so the more time you can give yourself, so to allow your body time to recover and to address the underlying issues, if you know that you're going to try to conceive at some point in the future, because it's all, age is such a big factor. We wish that it wasn't, but it really is. So kind of the sooner you find out, but there's always that balance, isn't there, between, you might not be ready to conceive yet, but you might know that you want to in a couple of years' time. So it's about knowing what your options are, I guess.
Exactly. Knowing what your options are and not being afraid to change your option. Because if you think, I'm 25, up to 28, I don't want children yet, but I might want children in 5 to 8 years. Do I need to think about swapping to a contraceptive which might suit that for me better? Or coming off the hormones for a year. There are huge benefits in hormones. I do think hormones are very beneficial for women who have reproductive problems, to treat the symptoms. But if you want that year to work out what's happening with your cycle and start treating it, then it can be beneficial to switch.
Mm. And in terms of switching or coming off contraceptions, in terms of the impact of your cycle, and I know everybody's different, and I know we can't like generalize, but in your experience, Dr. Fran, what contraception is better for cycle returning quickly?
Yeah.
Is there one that's better than another?
So as with anything with women's health, the research isn't brilliant. What we always say is no hormonal contraceptives affect your long-term fertility. They will not affect your ability for a cycle to return. However, well, I say that unless they are permanent options, so sterilisation and vasectomy, you're not going to then be able to easily get your cycle back or get pregnant. But most other hormonal methods do not affect your fertility. There is one method that we always have to mention, and that is the contraceptive injection, so the Depo-Provera or the Ciana Press.
Mm.
It's a great form of contraceptive for many women. It can stop your problematic periods in about 50% of women. You can give it yourself at home even. It's convenient. Yeah, the Ciana
I didn't
Press.
know that.
Yeah, it's a great option. It means you don't have to book into the ever difficult GP practice. You can just get your prescriptions, deliver it yourself at home. However, your cycle can take up to 12 months to return after stopping the injection. And I always say it may delay your return of fertility, because the research evidence for this isn't great at all. Again, because women's health. The study that this is based on was actually 60 women. 60 women, it's not many.
Yeah, it's small.
And they found that the median time to ovulate or release an egg after coming off the injection was around 30 weeks. So about, 6 to 7 months. But that's a tiny study. So it does cause a delay in returning to ovulation, returning to your cycle. However, how that correlates to pregnancy, there is a much bigger study of about 800 women that compared stopping the Depo injection to stopping the copper coil. Copper coil has no hormones. Your cycle will be what it will be on the copper coil. And they found that from after the Depo had run out, so after 3 months after your last one, and taking out the copper coil, the median time to pregnancy after the Depo was about 5.5 months. Median time of pregnancy after removing the copper coil was 4.5 months. So actually not a huge difference in pregnancy rates. And then if you go on to look a lot longer, the pregnancy rates at both 1 and 2 years were about the same. So the injection, we have to counsel women and say it may delay your return to fertility by up to 12 months. But long term, the pregnancy rates are similar to non-hormonal contraceptives and other hormonal contraceptives. But that's still 12 months, isn't it? It's still something that worries women. It's something you want more control over. And there's no way of me knowing which woman will stop the Depo and get pregnant immediately and who will have to wait for longer than 12 months. It's really difficult. But that's the injection. Otherwise, the more common contraceptives, so the combined pill, we're expecting your cycle to return within 90 days. About 99% of women, their cycle will return within 3 months. And the progesterone-only contraceptives, again, very quickly, you should be starting to ovulate and regain your menstrual cycle.
So with that all in mind, and how we can see that there is a different impact and effect on like when the cycles will return and like rates to pregnancy and things. If you come off contraception and you're still having problems, the cycle hasn't returned, or your cycles are like very different to how they were before you were on contraception, at what point do you think people should start getting that investigated?
Yeah. So personally, if there has been no period after 3 months of stopping contraception, then I would start arranging investigations, initially with at least blood tests to rule out thyroid problems, look for polycystic ovary syndrome, and that's when I'd start. Some GPs may wait up to 6 months and give you a bit longer. But I like to start early because I know how much it can affect a couple who are trying. Exception being the injection, where I would wait for 6 months. And then otherwise, the guidelines are exactly the same whether you've come off contraceptive or not for when I would start investigations and referral. So if you're under 35 and you haven't got pregnant despite your cycle returning after 12 months, I'm starting to investigate and refer you. Or lessons if you've been trying for 6 months and you're over 35, then I'll be referring at that point. But my threshold is always a lot lower for anyone who is having problems with their menstrual cycle coming off contraception that may indicate an undiagnosed health condition. So we're thinking polycystic ovary syndrome. I've come off the pill 6-7 months ago. My periods have come back, but they're all over the place. I've got this awful acne. I just don't feel myself. I'd be wondering, is there polycystic ovary here? Do I need to be referring this person earlier? And the other big one is endometriosis. I've come off my contraception. My Mirena coil has been removed, and I'm in absolute agony every month. My periods are so heavy, they're so long, but they're coming every month. And if I suspect that there is a really bad endometriosis or with severe symptoms, then I'll be referring soon, or maximum of 9 months of trying, then I'm referring.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it, that we sort of like to talk about and educate and inform people about. It's this idea that the more you can understand your cycle and the sooner you can do it, and the more you can understand the impacts of, contraception and what the consequences could be, and the more you can kind of check in with people to remind you about all of that, then the more control you have in terms of getting investigated immediately. Because as you say, contraception is an amazing thing for not getting pregnant and for managing conditions. The problem can often come when you're trying to conceive and you've got those underlying conditions. Like, what do you do about it at that point?
Exactly. And our education system, when we're young girls and young women, we get taught so much about how to prevent pregnancy.
Yeah.
We never get taught about how to get pregnant, do we?
No.
And we often say you almost need a refresher at different points in your reproductive life. So it might be important when you're 16 to prevent pregnancy. It might be important to have a refresher in your early 20s about the side effects of contraception. But when you're hitting your mid to late 20s, that's when the majority of couples are starting to think, possibly in the future I might want children, if they haven't already before. What do you need to be looking out for in terms of reproductive health conditions and your fertility? What do you need to be doing to prepare? But where do you go for that information? It's not readily available. There's no one there saying, hey, you should know about this. It's for people to go out and search for it themselves and be interested, isn't it?
Yeah,
Which
and
is
if you
a
don't
shame,
know,
really.
if
you don't know, where do you go?
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
well, here.
You don't know what
to us.
That's the plan. Like I always think that it's like, how do you know where to go if you don't know what you're looking for? Because we're not taught about it. So it's really hard to like find this info to begin with, and then once the doors open, well, there you go. There's tons of it, but to a degree with the research we have, but there's a whole load of people being like, we need this education.
And how do we start doing that? I mean, hopefully going forward, the government are really pushing this women's health strategy. We've got a women's health ambassador, and I'm really hoping in the next 10 years things will change and women will be much more empowered to be going out there and going, this is what I should know, this is what I need to know about everything about being a woman. Not just fertility, contraception, pregnancy, pelvic health, menopause, all of it.
Yeah. I always think it would be great is every time you went and had a review for your contraception, that it was part of that conversation. And I don't know whether it is like that now, but I just remember when I was on contraception, you literally rocked up, got your pill, took your blood pressure, and off you went.
Yeah.
And I always think, wouldn't it be great if you just had a check-in of like, where are you at? Are you thinking about conceiving? Are you still on contraception for the same reasons? And just going through like a little checklist at that point, because I think they are the regular points of contact, because you might not see your GP for a very long time. You might just go in, just get those repeat prescriptions. And I just think that would be quite a nice point of which it would appeal to the vast majority of people who are on it to just kind of flag, is this still the right one for you? Maybe, let's say, for example, like we were just saying about the injection, maybe if you're thinking about conceiving, you might want to move on to something different. just that conversation, I think it would be a really good place to have it.
I think that's an absolutely fantastic idea. And you can start to pick up problems already to say, oh, did you know you need 5 milligrams of folic acid? So
Yeah.
don't forget that. But
Yeah.
the problem with that is how many GPs are doing contraception reviews at the moment. I don't do the reviews in my practice. They're done
Yeah.
by other healthcare professionals who may not have the time, but
Yeah.
all the training, because you can't train everyone in everything to
Yeah.
do all of that, which again is a shame.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing that I always think as well is around this idea around sort of sexual health, around checking in with like, any infections, any itches, any, all of that kind of stuff that, again, lots of people either don't talk about, they manage themselves, they, might see as something separate to, the impacts that it could be having on their fertility. Just kind of checking in on kind of your vaginal health, your sexual history, all that kind of stuff is like like a tick list
An
of where are
MOT.
you at.
Yeah.
A fertility MOT.
An MOT,
It
yes.
would be, I just think it would save people so much time and heartbreak further down the line.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Knowledge is power, and without anyone checking in, how are you meant to know?
Mm. So, Dr. Fran, do you have any, we talked about like the folic acid and what else was it? Did we talk about vitamin D?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we talked about vitamin D. And so other from your perspective,
Mhm,
other ways to support your cycle. What do you say to people who've got, let's say they've come off the contraception pill, their cycle
mhm.
is a bit irregular. What wider things do you suggest when you're working with people?
So many things. I mean, as a medic, as a GP, and as you know, as you talk about, we are not trained particularly well in the vast array of holistic and complementary things that people can do. So I always say to people, it's not often one big thing that creates a huge change to you in your menstrual cycle. It's lots of small things that add up to make a big change. And that's so applicable to every area of healthcare.
Mm.
But in terms of your menstrual cycle, you're looking at healthy diet, reducing alcohol, stopping smoking, supplements, yes, but depending on your medical history and what you may be deficient in. You can get nutritional support for that. Nutritionists and dietitians are amazing. At the Lowdown, we've had training from a fantastic women's health specialist dietitian. How amazing is that?
Mm.
That she exists now. Then exercise really important. Again, not too much, because we're seeing more and more women with red S who don't think that they could have it, but do have it because they're exercising too much and not fueling their bodies. Sleep, hydration, stress reduction. I'm personally a big old fan of mindfulness, having the power to change all sorts of things in your body. And I'd be very daft if I didn't say acupuncture as well. So all of
Not
these
paying you
things.
to say that.
No, I know, but
Just want to make that clear.
hey, I have lots and lots of people who I know, patients and friends, and I've booked in for myself acupuncture from a women's health specialist. So
Oh.
it's fantastic. So in terms of supporting your menstrual cycle, there is so much you can do that is not medical. And that is everything that you should do first
Mm.
before thinking about medical issues. And if you say you are having very irregular periods, that's the point where medically we may be able to help by making them more regular with hormones and things like that. But actually, the first thing you want to do is look at everything that you can control and you can do first before you're wanting to speak to your GP about medications.
Yeah, again, it's just lovely to hear that all being reiterated, that with the menstrual cycle coming at it from like many different angles and like really nailing that basic stuff. I'm always like telling my clients, like, you need to get good sleep, make sure you're eating properly. Like, it's so easy to underestimate those like simple kind of things, because like they really do like underpin everything in terms of your health. So
And they're simple but so hard.
oh yes.
And when you see people in clinic, it's not so much people know what they need to do. It's
Yes.
the coaching element of helping people set those goals to realistically be able to do them, which I think's really important.
Yeah, 1,000%. That like bit of accountability, being like, did you go to bed on time? Like, so I mean, with that, like, what kind of support can the Lowdown offer anyone that's listening?
Loads of things. I mean, I love the Lowdown, obviously. Firstly, even if you're just curious about your fertility in the future, or if you're currently trying at the moment, we have our fantastic fertility tool. We ask a lot of questions about yourself and your partner, and then you will have a medically evidenced report on how to optimize your fertility and what you might be able to look out for in the future. Then if you're thinking about coming off contraception and you don't quite know where to start, our medical team can support with that, talk you through the next steps and what to expect in our telemedicine appointments, which have had exceptional feedback on Trustpilot, and we really enjoy doing them as well. We just love being able to speak to women. Then we have the incredible nurse consultant fertility specialist, Kate Davies, who really recommends speaking to her if you've got any concerns about your fertility, or you suspect or have a condition that is known to affect fertility, like thyroid problems, diabetes, polycystic ovary syndrome, or endometriosis. Kate is great. She's available through the Lowdown. And then finally, if you're actively trying to conceive, or if you're struggling to know where to start, you don't know how you're feeling, you don't know what to do next, use our platform to search through what other people have done, look at their experiences. You can comment and connect with them as a form of peer support. And then you've also got the benefit of really helpful data points that you can sort of do your own research with as well. And even if you currently aren't struggling to try to conceive, but you have ever been through that process, or you have been pregnant, take the time to go on the website and leave your own experience. And you don't know how much that's going to help other women in the future as well. That's why we like it. It's sort of a give and take. We take some information from you, and then we give it all back to other women to help them in the future.
I love that.
Amazing.
Creating a bit of community there. I think that's so needed. Like you were saying right at the start about the amount of people that don't tell someone that they're going through this, to like hear some shared experience and things. It's just, it's really valuable.
Yeah, that's what we hope.
It's a bit like it's like TripAdvisor then, isn't it?
Yeah, sometimes we use
say that. Do you say that, or is that not the right thing to say?
Yeah, we often use the tagline TripAdvisor for your vagina.
Love it.
I mean, that is genius.
So good.
TripAdvisor for your vagina. Yeah.
It's like right off our street, that kind of branding, isn't it?
I love it. Yeah, that's really good, because that's what you want, isn't it? You want information, you want to hear other people's experience, you want connection, and you want access to solid help and support, which is obviously what you offer through the telemedicine. And I assume that what people can book in and they pay an amount, and then they get like a 30-minute or an hour consult or something like that.
Yeah, exactly that. It's very reasonable price if you look at any of the private healthcare providers. But not only that, we have a pay it forward scheme. So we wouldn't want anyone to be restricted in accessing what we can offer. So if you struggle to book an appointment, you can sign up for the pay it forward scheme, where other women donate when they book their own appointments. And when we have enough, then someone gets a free appointment. Because
that's so good.
We want everyone to be able to access what we're doing. We are a small group of ridiculously passionate women trying to do this for women, because we truly believe that what we currently have isn't good enough.
Yeah. Amazing. I will put all your details on the notes so people can go and have a look, and they can have a search round, because there's loads of information on there. I have had a look myself. So I'll put all that so people can access it. And I just want to say thank you so much for your time today, because you are a busy woman.
It's not
juggling many things.
It's not a problem. I love doing these. I absolutely love them.
Oh, well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure having you.
If you've enjoyed listening to this and want to find out more, then come and join my free community in Facebook. We have loads of resources. You can catch up on all our previous webinars and be the first to know about forthcoming events. To sign up, just follow the link in the show notes. And if you'd like to work one-to-one with myself or one of the team, then please see our website, hannahpern.com, where you can book in directly or organise a discovery call to find out how we can support your fertility and your reproductive health.